take projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And let's get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. I said house cleaning. A little housekeeping out of the way. Be sure and follow us on Twitter and Instagram if you don't already, at Alabama Slam Pod. And we have a Facebook page as well. Just be sure to check the Alabama Slam podcast and look for our logo with the turnbuckle in the middle with the orange and red. And if you don't already, follow the Alabama Take as well on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Alabama Take is sort of a collective group of folks, sort of a podcast network, sort of a group of miscreants that write a bunch of essays, and we have a bunch of podcasts, 4 or 5, 6 maybe going right now. There's the Alabama Slam podcast, which is us. I have a podcast with some friends of mine called We Are a Star War. Founder of the Alabama Take, Blaine Duncan, has a pop culture podcast called Taking It Down. There's Taking on Sports. There's Check Your Shelf, which is a book podcast hosted by my lovely wife. And finally started up again, the new season of This Song Sucks dropped this week, and I think it's going to be a monthly thing for a little while. So be sure to follow us on all of the socials and all that stuff, and get on tpublic.com. If you want a Alabama Slam t-shirt, just search Alabama Slam and we'll come up. So we got that out of the way. Let's get into the wrestling for the week. We want to start off with Raw. We're gonna skip all the way to the end of Raw and then kind of circle back a little bit, because to us the most important thing happening right now is the Bloodline story, and it was a little different this week. Roman came out by himself and Paul Heyman, which was interesting. And then he got attacked by Sammy, which I wasn't sure if that would happen immediately or not, but it looks like they're going to have a title match at Elimination Chamber.
Boy, that was one hell of a pop for Sami Zayn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I love the line, too, from Sammy saying, I never wanted anything from you, but that's different now. I want those titles. They're making a distinction, both Sami Zayn and Cody, to say titles plural.
Yeah.
Which, the speculation for the longest has been that Roman could possibly wrestle both nights of WrestleMania, splitting the titles, because we've heard some rumors that both, Fox wants a title for their show, and of course USA Network and NBC Universal wants a separate title for Monday Night Raw. I mean, I guess things could change, but it doesn't sound like they're going in that direction, does it?
It's frustrating to me that if they do put both belts on like Cody, for instance, like I get it that Roman has had both belts for so long, and you make a big deal out of that, but like you got to split them back up at some point.
I get that, part of people have made this point that because Roman has had both titles now for about a year, and he's had the other title for, I don't even know, going on 2-something years at this point, but, he just got the other title at WrestleMania, the biggest WrestleMania match of all time this past year, supposedly what WWE said. It has made those titles feel like a big deal, and conversely, it's made the mid-card titles that Austin Theory has in the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title that Gunther has, it's made those more prestigious as well, just because they get defended more on television. There's less champions. And so I can see that point. I guess my counter would be, I think it is good to split both titles to each separate shows, but then each separate show should have their own pay-per-views or premium live events. So like Raw would have one month, and then SmackDown would have one the other month. That's how they used to do it back in the Ruthless Aggression era. And then you had a combined pay-per-view like the Big Four, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, WrestleMania, SummerSlam. Both Raw and SmackDown both of those rosters were on those pay-per-views. And I think you could do that just so you could have like you'd keep it fresh, right? So like one of the main stories then in WWE for the month, if it was SmackDown's turn to have a premium live event, the SmackDown title would be the main focus, and then the next month you could do Monday Night Raw, and you could keep it fresh that way. You know, you don't have to have all these people going everywhere, and even like the rosters aren't even split now. It seems like Chad Gable, and I love Chad Gable. Chad Gable's on TV both Mondays and Fridays. Seems like every week.
Yeah.
So like the roster's not even split now, even though it is supposedly. So I don't know. I mean, it sounds like they're going to keep both titles on one person from the way that these promos have been going. But like I said, we don't know what the plan is at this point. It seems like
Yeah.
a lot of stuff is up in the air and could change at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm for that. I wish they would split it back up. And I don't know. I feel like it takes a little shine off of probably Monday because Roman's not really on Monday as much as he is on SmackDown. I mean, you know,
Right. Yeah, and
but
SmackDown's doing better in the ratings right now. But how much of that is because it's on, Fox broadcast is not on cable, but also how much of it is because, when John Cena came back, he didn't come back to Monday Night Raw, he came back to SmackDown.
yeah,
So, to try to get those ratings up, yeah, I think you would definitely consider the move about having a champion solely to that brand and splitting the brands. I used to love that. I used to love when after the night of WrestleMania, they did, there was the draft and people
Yeah.
would get drafted to different shows and shit. It was always fun. So I wish that they would go back to that. I think that was a good way to do business.
yeah. They did it a few years ago when I started watching again. They had a draft because I was like, what the hell is happening here? And they were like, drafting for different shows or whatever. But I don't know
Yeah.
if they've done one since then or not. Since I just started watching wrestling and then quit WWE only to watch AEW, and then I've kind of jumped back in on WWE. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, getting back to the bloodline thing, like I get so frustrated. I'm still seeing headlines that were like, "Oh, people inside the company don't think that Sami Zayn could carry the title." I'm like, what gives them the impression that the fans wouldn't be behind Sami Zayn?
Yeah, I don't. Fuck it. Let's just jump forward. Let's jump forward to Monday Night Raw. We'll come back to SmackDown. It's just something else I want to talk about. I can't. I posted a GIF on our Twitter that and it was of Skip Bayless, and I was like, "Yeah, are y'all gonna make me feel like Skip Bayless when it comes time to record the podcast?" I don't know if you saw this, and maybe I'm in my own little world. I thought the promo Monday night between Cody Rhodes and Paul Heyman was good, but some people out there in Twitter land acted like that was the best thing that's ever been on WWE. And I feel like because there's been just a teeny tiny bit of Cody criticism out there, and it's not even really so much criticism on the part of Cody, but rather I think people like me who were like, hey, this Sami Zayn story is one of the greatest things this company's ever done. Maybe it's not Cody's time yet. They were so quick to post GIFs and reactions about that promo from Cody Monday night, being like, see, this is why he's the guy. And it's like, yeah, it was good. Still in that promo Monday night from Cody, there are little things he does that just irks the shit out of me, where he was like walking away from Paul Heyman, but then he turned back all dramatic and it was like, you called him, like referring to that Paul Heyman made the call to Dusty Rhodes,
Yeah.
And it's things like that where like, I don't know, I see so much of the performance part of Cody. Like he is, people say he feels genuine and he feels real. And I saw one Twitter person was like, oh, he makes you feel like you're right there in the story. I don't feel that way at all when Cody Rhodes is cutting a promo. It's like I said last week, he's so incredibly polished that it feels closed off to me in a way. And even in that promo, even in the promo Monday night, who got the most mic time and did most of the heavy lifting? It was Paul Heyman.
I sent you a text that night. I was like, hey, this was great stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked it a lot better than you did. It doesn't make me any more eager to get behind Cody potentially taking 2 belts over Sammy, because I'm all in on the Sammy storyline, and they hooked me. Like, this was one of the things that hooked me back into WWE in the last few months, was this storyline. And I mean, I'm not shitting on Cody. I like Cody fine. Like, and I mean, even if he got one title, there's no reason for Cody to have 2 titles, and it still feels jumping the gun to me that he came back for essentially a month or 2 last year, got injured, and then now all of a sudden he's in the title picture. Like, it irks the shit out of me. Like, they could put the belt on Cody later in the year. Put it on Sammy for a fucking month at least. Like, let him get a little glory out of all this. I don't know. They're gonna have to really step up the storyline for the Cody thing for me to change my mind.
Listen, Cody is fine, and that's what I like. He's just fine, and maybe I'm a hater, but in terms of like the best wrestlers in WWE, like, is Cody Rhodes better than Seth Rollins?
No.
Okay, so there's one dude that he's not better than. So why is Seth Rollins not getting this treatment? I think a lot of this too could just be to kind of stick it to AEW.
Yeah.
And I mean, Cody does have this nice built-in story about his dad, and I did kind of like Monday where, his finishing line to Paul was like, I'm just trying to win a championship, and all you guys keep making it personal. Like, okay, then we'll make this personal. But like, I don't understand. And this has really divided the wrestling Twitterdom. like there's staunch camps on both sides. There are people who will have put their stake in the ground and said Cody Rhodes is the guy. He is the one that should topple Roman. There are the people that are on Sammy's side. I think I'm kind of, admittedly, I'm more on Sammy's side than I am on Cody. But I don't think it's, again, I don't think where I'm coming from is an anti-Cody stance. I think it's a pro-Sammy stance, and just being like, this is a story that we haven't seen in this company before. It is hitting emotional heights that WWE has not delved into at any point in their storytelling over, I don't even know, 30 plus years. And so I don't understand the need to just be like, oh, this was our plan from the beginning with Cody, and so we're just going to forge ahead like these past 6 months hasn't happened. And also, this Roman Reigns bloodline story has been going on for literally years, with Roman and Jimmy and Jay and Paul, and now we've had almost a year now of Sammy in the mix. We haven't even seen Cody and Roman on screen together, and they probably won't be on screen together until about a month away from WrestleMania. So we're going to wrap this whole story up that we've taken years to do, and we're gonna insert a dude who's been in the storytelling picture for 4 weeks.
Yeah,
like
that's where I get frustrated.
Yeah, it's just, and there are people that are so quick to jump to Cody's case, and I'm just gonna stick by my guns. Like, if you have to keep telling me that this dude's a big deal, it's because you're just trying to convince yourself. I think like you're trying to make it work in your head. Now, I don't know where they go from that. I would honestly, Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso at WrestleMania is a more compelling story to me than Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
And I think Cody is naturally suited as a heel. I think he just is. So, like, if I was fantasy booking, I would let Sami Zayn beat Roman at WrestleMania and have Cody and Sammy actually kind of team up to, like, have Cody help Sammy kind of fend off some of these challengers, and like maybe a Jimmy Uso or a Solo or all this stuff. They kind of like have an uneasy alliance, and then Cody fucking turns on Sammy and becomes the biggest heel in the company, and Cody takes the belt off of Sammy at SummerSlam. And now you have your own little heel, because Cody's basically fucking Homelander from The Boys. He dresses just like him.
Yeah, he very specifically had the Homelander get up at one of the one of his last maybe AEW pay-per-views.
He's
Do you
got it
remember
now.
that?
Yeah, he came out with it at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And like, that was one of the rumors, because Cody's last couple of months in AEW, people are like, oh, he's going to turn heel, and he even referenced it like he just wasn't going to do it. And some of the people are speculating like, hey, maybe he's not turning heel because he's got a lot of stuff in the can that he wants to kind of save and see how this contract situation comes up, because maybe he takes a lot of that shtick to WWE.
Yeah.
Because
There was something he did the other night that seemed a little out of character, and I was like, maybe he will turn heel, because and that's why I meant to ask was I won't turn heel thing, was that strictly AEW, or do you think like that carries over to here? Because like I could see him turning.
I could see him turning in WWE too. I think the I won't turn heel thing in AEW was just because I think if you read between the tea leaves, it was a little bit like, hey, I ain't turning heel unless I get this contract and shit worked out between me and Tony. Because he seems like a guy that has notebooks full of ideas, right? I think again that's part of my problem with him, is that like you can just see how much he's thought about this stuff. And again, it's not a bad thing, but I think he needs to. There's an element where like you need to think about it, but then you also need to kind of forget about it when it becomes time. I think there was like I think Elia Kazan, the director that did like On the Waterfront. Have you ever seen that movie, On the Waterfront?
No.
Old time classic. Like I think it's Marlon Brando. I think is who it is. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm misremembering the story or not getting the details right, but I think like Kazan was directing Brando because there's like this famous scene on the boardwalk, and like Brando keeps doing it, and Kazan keeps calling cut, and he's like, "You're doing too much. Do less." And then do it, do less, multiple takes. And Brando was getting kind of pissed off, and finally he was like, "If I do any less, I'm going to be doing nothing." And then Kazan was like, "Now you're getting it. Like now you're understanding." I think there's a little bit of that needs to happen with Cody. Like if this was a movie, Cody Rhodes would be a fantastic actor because you could just then correct his what I think are his not great instincts, the dramatic turns to the camera and the pauses and some of that stuff. You could kind of, mold that a little bit, but because this is live television, you can't do those things. He seems to have carried some of his bad habits that I thought he had in AEW over to WWE. And again, it's just the over performative nature, I feel like, of his character. Now, Paul Heyman, also, you can also see the performance in his character, right? But the difference is Paul Heyman is a heel. And so during that promo Monday night, you're supposed to be able to see the performance and the seams of what he's trying to do, because he's going to turn it at the end, right? And be the shit heel like he's going to be. But with Cody, because he's a babyface, there needs to be more element of him being genuine, I think. Again, maybe I'm being too critical. If I am, somebody let me know on Twitter, but I'm still standing by my guns. If this dude continues down this road without changing anything, by the time August comes around, he's going to get booed out of the building. That's just how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably talk about this for the whole hour.
Because here's the thing, too. Keep this in mind. Elimination Chamber is coming up before WrestleMania. And when Sami Zayn's music hits in Montreal, that place is going to go fucking ape shit. And we've talked about on this podcast all the time that the way people are perceived on television and the way those fans in those buildings are perceived on television, that trickles out to other arenas and other places. You even saw Sami get a chant when Cody was doing his promo. Cody didn't even mention Sami's name yet. Like,
yeah, good point.
I don't.
It
bothers me.
This is slightly off topic, but not really. Can the Usos get into Canada next week with their DUI records and stuff? Like, do you think they'll have visa problems? How does that work?
Oh shit! Because they've missed the Canada show this year, right?
Yeah,
I haven't even thought about that.
I think they did, or they had like a special something. But like, I read the other day on Twitter, I forgot who it was like, hey, there's speculation that they may not be able to get in for the show next Saturday.
Well, that's going to be crazy because if what people have predicted is that's when Jey Uso is going to make his return and fuck over Sammy to set
Yeah.
up the Sammy and KO versus the Usos thing at the match at WrestleMania. And I still think WWE is probably going to go with that way just because if they didn't get The Rock, like if Roman and Cody is going to main event one night of WrestleMania, what main event's the second night?
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like Rhea and Charlotte have that much juice yet. We don't even really know who Bianca's opponent is going to be. The only other storyline that has any kind of juice to it whatsoever is the thing that Sami Zayn is involved in. And so you would think that, Sammy and KO versus the Uso main event night 1 and Roman and Cody main event night 2. But I still, this is one hell of a gamble I think that the WWE is doing by seemingly putting all their chips on Cody Rhodes and not, it doesn't seem like they're willing to budge from what this plan is. And I would just love to be a fly on the wall in that room and to try to listen as to why that's the case.
Well, let's rewind just a little bit and go back into SmackDown and talk about one of the matches from there. I think the one probably worth commenting on from that night was Braun Strowman and Ricochet versus Imperium.
Yeah, Imperium. I love this match. I love the pairing of Ricochet and Braun. And the only reason I want to talk about this is because, they've made a distinction during this tag team tournament on SmackDown that these, Ricochet and Braun are only challenging for the SmackDown World titles, not the undisputed tag team titles. And they're actually, if you're listening to this on Friday, the match is tonight when Ricochet and Braun are supposed to face the Usos. But of course, Jey Uso is not with the Bloodline right now. And so it's speculated it's going to be Jimmy and Solo. So could we see a thing where one half of the undisputed tag team titles goes to Ricochet and Braun? And if that happens, I would lean to suspect that maybe there might be an audible that might get called for Sammy and KO. Because if you were going to do Sammy, if you were going to do Sammy and KO, you would want them to be for the undisputed titles. So again, this is maybe I'm reading too much in the tea leaves. I don't know. But I think, giving Ricochet and Braun Strowman, that's such a unique pairing. And they can have so many good matches with all types of different opponents. That's not a bad call, I don't think.
Yeah, it seems to be working pretty well for them. It seems, very unlikely pairing at first, but they put on some really good matches. And so I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the money match for the Usos is Jimmy Uso versus Jey Uso at WrestleMania, or Jey Uso versus Solo Sikoa at WrestleMania. I think that's the match to make in my eyes. And Jay's talked about how he would love to have a WrestleMania match with his brother. So if you were going to really dissolve the bloodline, I mean, that's a hell of a way to do it. But
do it up, do it all the way.
Do it up. I mean, go all the way. But we'll see what they do. But Ricochet and Braun Strowman, love those two guys. Great natural chemistry. So and Imperium is a hell of a tag team too. I mean, they're kind of in that role where they're good hands. They can make the baby faces look good and lose in the end, but they're capable enough that they can get their heat back because they do cool moves and they're vicious enough that they make the violence look believable when they're beating down the baby faces. So it's easy for guys like that to get heat back.
Yeah. I missed the first half of Raw, but I saw the second half of it mostly. Just super quick, Asuka defeated Chelsea Green. Asuka, so fucking badass right now. Do you think there's a possibility they could put her against Bianca?
I think that's a good possibility. Because if you want to take Bayley and Becky out of the equation, right? Because it looks like they're going to do their own thing at WrestleMania. which I want to
Yeah.
hit on, by the way, because of fantasy booking. A match between those two at WrestleMania has got me pretty hyped. If this is indeed what they do, but if you take Bayley and Bianca out of the equation, who are the 4 biggest women's stars that they have in the WWE? Well, it's Rhea Ripley, it's Charlotte Flair, it's Asuka, and it's Bianca.
Yeah.
So you do a combination of those 4 women. I think that's the way to go. I love Chelsea Green too, by the way. I think her gimmick as just being a Karen is going to have a lot of legs to it. And you need, much like a Santino Marella, who was in the WWE for forever, you need these type of people who bring a little bit of levity to the show. And her gimmick, if she's so committed to it and she keeps on it for a couple of months, she'll naturally turn into a babyface because people will get on board with it because it'll be entertaining television. So I think she just needs to keep honing in on that character. Adam Pearce doing a fantastic job, by the way, as the authority figure. I feel like he's really stepped up these past couple months with his character.
When did they bring him in for that role? When did that happen? That was sometime in between.
Yeah, because when I started watching again, I guess sometime last summer, he was already there. Now, of course, I knew Adam Pearce from the Indies and NWA. I knew him as a wrestler.
Yeah.
And so when I started watching again, he was just already the authority figure. So I don't know how he came into the role. But he's doing fantastic work too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the role you've mentioned before that AEW could use somebody like that, like an on-screen authority. And I think
as a babyface, though, that's the big. It has to be a babyface because but again, the temptation is when you put an authority figure on screen, naturally you could kind of make them a bad guy. Like it gets cliched very easily.
Yeah. And I think we had tossed around the idea that Shivani could do it.
Something like that. And then it makes sense, especially in WWE, right? Because they've sort of taken the approach of like AEW is very sports based. So when AEW comes on screen, right, the Excalibur does it's Wednesday, you know what that means? Like they tell you all the matches that are going to happen.
Right.
WWE is not like that. WWE is more spontaneous. And so you need kind of an authority figure there that makes sense to be like, okay, you want a match? We'll do it later tonight. Go get ready. Like you need somebody like that to kind of fill in the blanks of the storytelling. I also think AEW could use somebody like that too to fill in some of those blanks that they have, but they seem to not want to go in that direction or at the very least not do it yet. But you would need somebody like an Adam Pearce in that role.
Yeah. Well, I say we switch gears, unless there's anything else you want to hit up in the WWE universe for this week.
Real quick,
we switch gears.
Because Lita got involved in the main event, right?
Yeah.
On Raw. And so Bayley has Dakota Kai and Io Sky. Are they going to do a fucking Becky Lynch and Lita and Trish Stratus trios tag team? Because if that's the case, I'm all the way fucking in. I think that's a hell of a match. And you want to talk about WrestleMania, you want to talk about star power? If I get Lita, Becky Lynch, and Trish Stratus on a team together, like, this could be one hell of a WrestleMania. We might be disappointed by the main event, depending on how they go with it. But
I think we will be.
It might be worth the price of admission just to get that match and to get Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio and watch Rey just slap the shit out of his fucking kid. That'll be worth it for me. That'll be worth the 9.5 hours of 2 nights of WrestleMania for me. I'll be sold.
So when I texted you the other night, because I thought you were watching the show and you had posted that clip of Dominic being lifted up and him screaming, "Mommy!"
No, I just saw it on Twitter.
When was that from? Was that from a few weeks ago, I guess, or something?
No, that was from Monday night, I think, when during the Judgment Day.
Oh, so I just missed that. Yeah, I missed that whole thing.
Yeah, I think you missed it. Yeah, I think it was the very beginning because Montez Ford snuck up behind Dominic. Montez Ford, by the way.
I just saw that where he's running to sneaking down the thing and he's like click, 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 clicking.
Yeah. When are they going to Angelo Dawkins has improved a lot. And, he got a lot of perhaps unfair Marty Jannetty comparisons, which, by the way, Marty Jannetty was fucking badass in his own right. It just happened to be that he was in a tag team with Shawn Michaels, who one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. When are they going to break up the Street Profits? Because Montez Ford, you want to talk about people that have potential?
Yeah.
Like, you could see Montez Ford being on like a WrestleMania main event graphic, holding the championship in like 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people talking about that since last year because probably when I really Mania was probably the first big thing I watched last year. I know it was the first big thing I watched last year, and they were already talking about it then. They're like, yeah, they're going to break this team up sooner rather than later because Montez is going to break out, and it still hasn't happened.
But again, if you have two separate world titles, one that's devoted to SmackDown and one that's devoted to Raw, you give guys like that a chance to take the title a little bit earlier, maybe even before they're ready, and let them kind of grow into the role. Because right now, I'm assuming the reason why they haven't broken up Street Profits is because, one, the tag team division is a little bit light, so you want to keep the tag team. And two, like, where's Montez going to go? Because the top of the roster is pretty top heavy with Roman and Cody and, KO and all this stuff. And like, if he's not ready to break into there yet, I guess you could put him up against Austin Theory or whatever, but you're also trying to mold Austin Theory in the similar type of way, right? So that's another reason why you might think about splitting the titles, is to give more guys more of an opportunity to kind of carry the show a little bit, give them the ball, see what they can do.
Yeah,
but he's endlessly entertaining.
Yeah. So let's jump into Dynamite. I mean, this was a hell of a show, I thought. We won't touch on everything from last night, but there's some that we definitely got to talk about. First off was Takeshita versus MJF. Just straight fire. I will say this about last night. It was a little much. It was almost a little too much MJF last night.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I mean, he was just all in that fucking episode. I mean, he was like 3 different times. Like, okay, well, here's MJF. Like, there was his match, then there was a promo in the back, and then there was a whole other thing with him too. I was like, well, okay. I don't know. I knew that it was going to run long because there were so many matches, and then it got to like 14 minutes left or whatever, and they're like, okay, by the way, here's the tag team title match at the end. I was like, well, this one's going to be short.
See, I kind of liked what
my thing.
I liked what they did with MJF because he is the champion, and so the show should revolve around him. And that's what the show did last night. He has the biggest prize. He's the main character. And so you get the opening, you get the thing with Danielson. I kind of, should it have maybe ended with Danielson and Roosh? And it should it have gone off the air with security trying to pull an unhinged MJF off of a bloody Danielson? I think maybe, we talk about some of the match orders sometimes. I think I would have kept put that at the main event and moved the Guns and the Acclaim to the middle of the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably kind of hard to judge that going in, but like, I feel like the ending of the show was so awkward last night because there was, I don't know if maybe they just rushed the match because they knew that they didn't have a lot of time for it, but it felt like after the match was over, it just kind of lingered there for a little while last night. And then you've got the Acclaimed with Billy Gunn in the ring, and there's no music or anything kind of going. I mean, the Guns music was still going for a little bit, but it's not as like loud and abrasive as like some of the other people's music are. But like, and then all of a sudden they kick in the Acclaimed music, and it got a little less awkward. I think everybody was so shocked and pissed that they actually put it on the Guns, which, I get it. Like, you want the faces to chase the title a little bit, right? Like, the Guns cheated, took the title. Now you get to put the Acclaimed, trying to get that title back or whatever.
And I mean, I get why they probably wanted Danielson and Roosh in the middle of the show just to give them more time so that, you don't run into a situation where you've you've gone over. And so you got to tell those two guys, hey, we need you to do it in 11 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, Tony and the AEW team, production team, I'm talking about, producers, the people in the truck that are timing out these things and giving cues and stuff to the ref. We're 3.5 years into this thing. They should be on top of that. People shouldn't be going over their time by a lot. And so I feel like you should have enough confidence in everybody to be like, we're going to put Danielson and Roosh on at the end. They're going to be the main event. They're going to have time because we're going to build it into the show. I just think it's a more powerful way to end the show with the babyface Danielson being bloodied and the show ending in just pure chaos of being like MJF has gone off the fucking rails, rather than ending it like you said. Like there's two types of unexpected things that can happen in wrestling. There's the unexpected that makes you go like, holy shit. And usually that happens with like returns, new debuting superstars, that sort of thing. And then there's the unexpected that makes you go, huh, okay, well, didn't really see that one coming. And you don't want to end the show on those kind of notes. Because like you said, it gets awkward. So like if you just flip those two and you put the guns in the middle of the show and at fucking 8:15, they end up screwing the Acclaim and they win the titles. Well, now you still got 45 minutes of show left to kind of ramp you back up instead of just letting you go on a down note like that. And I'm not even saying it's a bad call to let the Guns win the tag team titles. I think it's actually probably the right call, especially the way they did it. Again, match order has a lot to do with this. I love that they started off with MJF because you get that the big people like, here's our champion. Like we're trying to retain viewers. Here's MJF and the young dude, and here's Takeshita, who is, a phenom that we're trying to book. And I love the way they're booking him, putting him next to these dudes who are established superstars because he looks the part. He looks every bit of it.
Yeah. That was a hell of a match last night.
Yeah, and I love that
MJF over it.
Yeah, I love that MJF like took it to another level too, It's good for his character to show. He did that little flip. He did the backflip off the top and then like had a little bit of fire. Like it was great stuff. In ring, AEW is just unmatched. I mean, this is, in terms of just wrestling, bell-to-bell action, it's the best company that's ever been on national television in North America, and it's not even close. I know that people like to talk about WCW, and WCW was great, but in terms of the in-ring action, it was basically only the cruiserweights, and that was kind of it. The main event level wrestling in WCW was not great, which is why, nobody's like, oh, that Kevin Nash match from, it sold out in 1998 is great or whatever the fuck. And nobody's saying that. Like the big draw with WCW and those main event guys were the stories. But in terms of the action, it was the cruiserweights. AEW, I mean, we've complained about their lack of stories. I think that some of it's gotten overblown, even to the point where some people on Twitter are like, well, where's the pay-per-views coming up in a month? Where are the stories? And it's like, well, have you been watching the show? Because there's fucking MJF and Danielson. There's the Guns and the Acclaim. There's Moxley and Hangman. There's like all these different stories going on. So like,
yeah, I figure that's where we'll end up getting Jericho and Starks, unless they just ended that whole thing last night, which was fucking weird.
Yeah, that was weird too. But in terms of just the action, like fucking good God, last night there was you get Danielson and Roosh, you get the damn trios match, you get MJF Takeshita. Like it is an embarrassment of riches at this point. Yeah.
So let's get into that JAS and Ricky Starks thing last night. Why? That's all I can say really is why. Like I thought the whole point of this last few weeks was that like, oh yeah, well we're gonna get him versus Jericho, and then last night Jericho's wearing a mask, hits him with the Judas effect from the crowd, and then Ricky gets pinned in the ring. Like, so now are we going to somehow have to restart that again, or are we just abandoning the Starks and Jericho thing and going to put Ricky in some other story?
I mean, you were pretty gracious when you said Jericho hit him with the Judas effect. Kind of looked like he just like hit him with the air, He didn't really touch him that much. I don't know. Somebody else has made this joke online, so it's not original, but like all of Jericho's feuds in AEW they've gone the opposite way. Somebody was like, "Oh, Jericho must be a huge Christopher Nolan mark because all his shit goes backwards. It's all not in time." Because like if you remember, what was it? His feud with Claudio, they like started it at Blood and Guts where everybody's bloody and it's this huge blow off match, and then they just went to have normal matches after the fact. And it's like that's never how wrestling has gone at all. Like it's you do the normal stuff and then you lead up to the big blow off. The same thing with Ricky and this Chris Jericho feud. Ricky like beats him, but now he's like losing to him again. And it's like, well, why don't you just do the gauntlet at the beginning and then make us be pissed because Jericho's dodging Ricky, and then Ricky finally beats Jericho, and then that's it. We've gone backwards. And like, is anybody interested in Ricky versus Jericho at this point? I mean, I don't think so.
I mean, there's a lot of other things I could be doing with Ricky Starks.
Yeah. He's, like I said, Ricky's one of the dudes, man. He should be booked as one of the top 5 or 6 guys in your company. Like, Jericho should be working with Action Andretti. You know, he should be working with Jungle Boy. He should be working with Top Flight. You know what I mean? Like, those are the types of dudes that Chris Jericho should be feuding with. Because he can kind of coach him up in some of these promo segments. And then, like, even if he ends up beating these dudes in the feud, at least you're like, oh, man, fucking Dante and Darius. Like, that's their first taste that they got of a main eventer, and like even though they lost, like boy, they look good. You see a lot of potential in them. Like Ricky is, we're done with the Ricky has potential narrative. Ricky's there. Yeah. He's a dude. He's a guy. Let's book him as such. There are better ways to use Chris Jericho. I don't. And a lot of it probably is because Jericho is pitching his own stuff to Tony Khan. I mean, you'd have to assume that Jericho has a lot of control over who he works with and how he gets booked. And that's, again, not to say this every week, but we say it every week. That's where a writing staff comes in who can write these things and have the show have a little bit of flow to it and have it be interesting and have it be different and have some variety amongst the storylines. And have it not be same old all the time. So anyway, we've belabored that point. This is episode 38. We've fucking said that since the first, and it ain't probably going to change. So
yeah,
I'm always here, Tony. Unless you want to give me a job, I'm here.
Holler at Patrick.
Holler at us
at Alabama Slam Pod on Twitter. Patrick's probably on there more than I am. So yeah, we touched on the Danielson and Roosh thing, but this one was the one that went the hardest of the night. I didn't realize that this was the last of the whole eliminator thing or whatever they're doing to get him in the match with MJF. But yeah, so I guess they may actually give Danielson a break next week.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to. I feel like they should have made more of a big deal about that, though. I didn't know that either until we got into the match. And I was like, oh, they probably should have built that up a little bit more, that this is Danielson's last test. And maybe they did and we just missed it. I don't know, but we pay pretty damn close attention. So if we missed it, probably a lot of people missed it. But what a damn violent sprint this was. I mean, holy hell. The whole time I was watching this, the only thing I could think of was, man, I'm so fucking pissed off at Andrade. Because if an Andrade would have kept his damn head on straight, a fucking Andrade, Roosh, Preston Vance faction would be one of my favorite things on fucking television. Just running roughshod over everybody.
Yeah.
And instead, we don't get that.
Yeah, that hurts my feelings a little bit because I think Andrade's fucking great. It is weird though that like, I mean, he brought Roosh in, and now Roosh is getting like Roosh. A lot of people caught on to Roosh last night.
He felt like in that match, he felt like he had a chip on his shoulder, and he was like, "This is an opportunity for me to show people something, and I'm gonna fucking show it to them."
Yeah. So this is the tweet that I screenshotted and sent to you last night. It says, "If Andrade had that dog in him, you can let your little bro come into your house and piss all over to mark his territory. Have some self respect." Like, I mean, that's essentially what Roosh did last night.
Yeah, and Danielson was the perfect dance partner because Danielson's crazy enough to go with all that shit. So, like, yeah, I mean, Danielson's chest, my God. Like, it's good that it happened, Revolution's not till March 5th because he's going to need about a month to kind of recover.
You're gonna need some time to recoup for sure.
Yeah, and like, I guess you could say like, oh, I'm not into the blood. The blood added an element to it last night. Like that, like jumping around a little bit. You know what would have made the Royal Rumble ending between Sammy and Roman even better a couple weeks ago? If fucking Sammy would have started bleeding and Kevin would have started bleeding. The image of Kevin handcuffed to the ropes with just dripping blood would have made that so much more dynamic. But yet they don't do that in that company, because it's PG and whatever. But like last night, like that's how you use color in a pro wrestling. Like it is a tool you can use if you're willing to use it, and it can add an element to it. Danielson was straight up getting his ass whooped, and he was beaten down and broken, and he had the shoulder, and Roosh was landing in those damn shots. Just those forearms to the neck were just, you could hear them coming through the television screen. And yet Danielson was able to overcome. And that is a perfect example of how you tell a story inside a wrestling ring during the match. People talk about AEW doesn't tell stories. And it's like, well, okay, outside of the ring, like, when the bell's not going, like maybe. But in terms of like being able to tell a story between the ropes, they got a lot of dudes in that organization that do that on the daily. Danielson, Moxley, Hangman, Omega, the Lucha Brothers. Like you can go on and on. Like they do all that kind of stuff. So I thought that Danielson Roosh match. I mean, that's the best one that that one and Bandito have been the two best ones from this little run, right?
Yeah.
And they've been
apparently.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, yeah, you go.
They've been two different styles too, by the way. That was another thing. Yeah. It's like the Danielson Bandito match was more athletic. It was Danielson's first match, I think, first or second in this thing. So he was more fresh, a lot of more high impact stuff. I don't even know if they went to the top rope last night.
I don't think, maybe once.
I mean, they pretty much brawled on the outside.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's a different style. And Danielson is just – there's a dude that we follow on Twitter, and it cracks me up every time because I'm like, I should have thought about this. But every time Danielson's on screen, he just tweets out, imagine thinking Danielson ain't the fucking GOAT.
Yeah. It cracks me. I think that's one of the Fightful Select people.
Just a great tweet.
Jeremy Lambert or something, yeah.
Yeah, great tweet.
Every week. Yeah,
every week.
I love it.
It's just, I mean, that's what he is. Bryan Danielson is the best in-ring professional wrestler that ever lived. Yeah. And it is a joy that we get to watch him on television.
Well, let's we got a few minutes left. Let's touch on the trios title match last night. Great shit all around. There's a lot of great chemistry between the Top Flight guys and the Bucks. They had a great match a few weeks ago at this point.
Yeah.
You could tell they enjoy working together. That there's a lot of good shit last night in that match.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think the biggest takeaway for this match was it's just cool to see AR Fox in this position. Yeah, we talked about it a couple weeks ago when he debuted, like a dude who just kept grinding on the indies and, wrestling in front of 50 people in high school gyms and VFW halls. And now he's on national television getting a reaction like that in a big moment. It's just cool. It's cool to see. I love it when things like that happen. And you can tell really how much influence he's had just on Dante and Darius. I mean, they look.
Yeah.
They haven't worked together a lot, but they look like they belong as a trio. Like they look like they've been wrestling the three of them for forever. So yeah,
they were
cool.
all dressed pretty much the same last night too, which was kind of cool.
It just makes me think though, what is the direction with the trio titles? Because we have speculated. Was there any House of Black reference last night?
Not last night, no. But Eddie Kingston's supposed to be on Rampage Friday night,
right?
And I figure they'll address some of that. He was kind of on a Twitter rant last night too, and today, which was interesting, talking about people backstage and he just doesn't like certain people. And I mean, he's already called out MJF this week, and I think that was on Marin's podcast that I need to listen to.
Yeah, I need to listen to it too. What a weird crossover! Like Mark Maron getting into wrestling at the same, like I don't know. It's so random, but so cool at the same time. And yeah, I mean, not to keep belaboring this point, but if Cody Rhodes had a little bit more Eddie Kingston in him, he would be my favorite wrestler.
Yeah,
like everything that I love about Eddie is the things that I don't love about Cody. Like believability. I don't believe Cody. I believe every single thing that comes out of Eddie's mouth. I don't on this Twitter, like I don't even, is he working? Is it a shoot? I don't fucking know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I ain't got a clue. And that's what makes it interesting. So I wish there was just a little bit more of that. Eddie also is another guy, like, I feel like AEW has dropped the ball with him. And not even like a little bit. I feel like quite a bit. There's a handful of dudes that AEW has just kind of like shit the bed with.
Yeah, because he was getting over and was on TV pretty much every week there for a while, and then now I think they're fixing because he was off for a little while, and I think they're about to put him through this House of Black thing, which will be fine with anybody else, but you don't need Eddie in that. Man, what you need Eddie with is just put him on TV, put a mic in his hand, let him talk for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and get out there and whoop somebody's ass.
In the way that Sami Zayn has become the biggest babyface in WWE, that's exactly the same way that AEW should have used Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
And you could have put Eddie, you could have slotted him right in that same kind of role. I think you would have got the same kind of crowd reaction from the AEW audience, the way that Sami is with the WWE audience. And you would have a massive babyface that you could pull the trigger on. And maybe they'll do that. We all speculated that MJF is probably going to keep the world title, at least for the rest of this year. Even last night, he came out with the 24 jacket on. Hell of it. Did he also like that promo he did back? So did that girl die in his story? Did she die?
So there's a lot on Twitter about that today. Apparently the police department in that area received a flood of calls last night. And only it is based on a true story. MJF and several of his football buddies were all injured in a wreck in high school.
Oh, so that shit's legit. That's a shoot.
Yeah, like it was 80% true is what the story I read was that there was no female in the car. That they said MJF likes to pull from real life experiences. So yes, there was a car wreck, but there was no lady or female young lady involved in the wreck.
That's outstanding. That's fucking amazing work.
I kept thinking, like, he never said the girl's last name, but everybody was saying that he was referencing Liv Morgan.
Oh,
Did you see that?
Yeah, well, because there was that picture that floated around a couple months ago. They're from like this, they're both from New Jersey, and they were just kind of they were hanging out. And so it was just Liv Morgan tweeted the same picture that MJF did, and so people made that speculation.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I know we're all over the place, but yeah, that MJF promo, I was just watching it. I was like, this dude he's so good, man. He's so fucking good.
He's on another level for sure.
He's so good.
Well, yeah, we've talked about the last match already, the Acclaimed and the Gun Club. A little strange, the way they did that, but I don't think there's really much else to say on that. I do want to get in. It looks like there might be a little bit of breaking news in the New South world. Um, I picked up my phone just a second ago. It looks like the Hoss tournament is now going to be taking place in Florence at the Singing River Brewery.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, they've moved on March 3rd and 4th. They were having some issues booking the Sparkman Civic Center. There's a pretty big post from your boy Dump on Facebook, and they tried to book it in Decatur. Decatur was like changing the price and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it's gonna take place in Florence.
You said Singing River?
Yeah, I definitely plan on driving over for at least one night of that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can make two.
Yeah, they're and I think one of the guys they announced was Myron Reed, who excuse me, I just got Fight TV Plus, and a little indie recommendation of the week. I watched it was from Wrestling Revolver, which I believe is based in Indiana or Illinois. No, Ohio. I get my fucking Midwestern states all confused. Ohio, yeah, because they had John Moxley. Because it was called Night at the Moxbury, and John Moxley was the host. And so yeah, you can, if you have Fight TV Plus, you can go watch it. Just a fucking bonkers ass show. Our favorite Mance Warner was in the main event. His second gear crew guys against the Rascals, which is composed of Trey Miguel, who I believe is the Impact X Division champion, Myron Reed, who's going to be at New South in the Haas tournament, and the other guy who I'm kind of blanking on his name. They just had a fucking crazy ass match. They were moving scaffolding around. they were doors.
Jesus.
There was chairs. Yeah, it was wild. They were bleeding everywhere. But yeah, that was a great show. Night at the Moxbury. If you have Fight TV Plus, you go back and watch it. Billy Starks, who we saw at GCW here in Huntsville, had a great match with Allie Catch, who we also saw. Ace Austin and Chris Bay, two guys who are in Bullet Club and who I believe are both in Impact. Super young guys who have a tremendous future in wrestling. I would really love to see Ace Austin either in AEW or WWE. I think that dude has superstar written all over him. He's got a cool look about him. Chris Bay, the same way. Also, I think I found my new favorite independent wrestling tag team. And let me look up the names. I think his name was Dan the Dad. And
yeah, I've seen that name before on Twitter.
Dan the Dad, and what was it? Is it Man Scout? Yeah, Jake Manning, the Man Scout. they had a tag team match against Ace Dawson and Chris Bay, which was just endlessly entertaining. So definitely go to check those guys out. I love independent wrestling when it has these crazy characters like this. It's just the best. Like there's nothing like it. So that was one hell of a show. I'm really loving Fight TV Plus though. I can keep up with all the GCW stuff that's happening. And
I need to get on that.
Companies. Yeah, it's only $5 a month too. So like, it's great.
So it is Elimination Chamber next week? Is that Saturday or Sunday?
It's that is a good question. It might actually be on Sunday because there's nothing to go up against it.
Saturday night, GCW on this 18th has Matt Cardona versus Nick Wayne. Have you seen that yet?
I have. Elimination Chamber is actually sat on a Saturday, February 18th.
Shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, so those are running up against each other.
But with Fight TV Plus, you can watch it on demand.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be worth the $5 to see Cardona and Nick Wayne.
Yeah, Nick Wayne, also another guy. Talk about all the potential he has. We got to see him live in person, so super impressive. Young guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. Can you imagine being fucking that young and having that much damn talent?
I just saw on his pinned tweet on Twitter was from like last February when I guess he signed his All Elite contract or whatever, because it just the tweet was just All Elite and then it was pinned.
Man, when I was
So yeah, you got to wonder when they're going to bring him up. And speaking of Billy Stark, she was on Dark this week. I don't know if you knew that or not.
yeah, had a hell of a showing. I just think all these kids like Billy Starks and Nick Wayne, like 17, 18 years old, they're traveling all around the world, wrestling in front of international audiences. Dude, when I was that age, I was just trying to get somebody to have sex with me. That's all I was trying to do. That's all I was doing. Just being a loser, you know? And these kids are out here tearing down the house, having, 4 and 5 star matches. Yeah. Just, I don't know. It's kind of odd. That is one thing. Did you ever see, what was the newest Licorice Pizza, the Paul Thomas Anderson movie? Did you ever see that this past year? So there's been a string of high school movies where, and like, I'm thinking about, I don't know why, but like Booksmart comes to mind, where it was like all these high school movies where the main characters are like, they're super articulate and they have all their shit together and they're like, motivated to like save the world and do all this stuff, like the new age thing. And like Licorice Pizza, I thought was just kind of refreshing because the main character was just trying to get a hand job from like women at some points in the movie. I was like, that's kind of my, like, hey man, that's what I was trying to do when I was 15, 16. Like I didn't have any thoughts about like the future or anything like that. So
fucking existentialism and shit.
Yeah. I'm having like any kind of shit like that. I feel like that's a very new age thing for these kids to be having. My high school experience was way more like Superbad. Like there's like the Superbad era of movies, high school movies, and then there's like the Lady Bird, Booksmart era of high school movies. Both are great, by the way. Love Lady Bird, love Booksmart, love Superbad, but they're just different thematically.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be just with the changing of the times, I'm sure.
I think that'll wrap us up for the week, man.
What a left turn that fucking was. Out of nowhere.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's it, man, for the week in wrestling. So yeah, $5 for Fight TV, and that's where, like I said, worth it to see Cardona and Nick Wayne next weekend. So I may have to do that. May be my Sunday viewing if Elimination Chamber is Saturday night. I'll probably watch that. Because I'll be less likely to see spoilers for GCW probably than I will.
Oh yeah,
WWE stuff. So.
Yeah,
but yeah, man. Y'all give us a follow Twitter and Instagram at Alabama Slam Pod. Trying to get back in the swing of doing the prompt of the week. I was a little late getting to it this morning, and we didn't get any responses. So I'll try to start doing those on Wednesday and maybe get them in front of a few more eyeballs. But y'all just shout out us if you got any questions or anything, and we'll try to get back to you. And until next week.
Later, guys.